Michelle Malkin's with us right now. Michelle, were you offended by Delphi's lacrosse choice?
No, I was not, and I think that unfortunately the officials there did not follow the rule. Never apologize. I mean, apologizing for being patriotic and supporting our president, really?
Yeah.
This is why the higher education bubble is bursting.
I mean, would you be offended if you found out some Chicago college was using President Obama's inspiring words to open up, if that's their choice?
No, of course not. And, you know, I think this is why more and more parents are realizing that college does not have a very good return on the investment.
Good point. All right, Kellyanne, speaking of apologizing, you know, I think the Democrats across the board would like to see the President of the United States apologize for firing James Comey, even though they were all calling for his head starting last summer when he announced that they were looking at Hillary Clinton's crazy email situation. What do you make of what is going on and how the room temperature has risen in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, well, you know, you hear this mantra over and over again that it's the timing of the firing that's really troubling. It's not the timing. It's the fact that President Trump has the authority to fire and hire. These people still have not accepted that Trump won and Hillary lost, and they haven't gotten over that. And the hypocrisy is overwhelming. It is gobsmacking in its volume. I mean, how phony have these Democrat hypocrites been? Let us count the ways. These people are now hewing and crying over a constitutional crisis. Constitutional crisis? Where was their concern over the Constitution when you had President Obama usurping and having an imperial presidency every day for the last 8 years of his presidency? Where are these people? Where's the concern for the constitutional rights of the First Amendment rights of journalists who dare to question him, the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding gun owners in this country, the Fourth Amendment rights of conservatives who had their IRS records plundered as part of a political witch hunt? And how about the 10th Amendment? Do these people even know what the 10th Amendment is? Constitutional crisis. And then you have Maxine Waters with her head-spinning justification for why she would have supported a Comey firing if Hillary had been in place. But Trump, now it is the apocalypse.
That is confusing. No kidding.
And she was on, did an interview at the network, and they kept saying, the questioner kept saying over and over again, but you called for him to be fired. What's the difference now? Why are you upset that he was fired? And essentially she had no answer. But she was honest the day before when she said, so far from what she's seen, there's been no proof of collusion between the Russians and the president. No one has said there's any type of collusion, but yet it seems to be the theme. He's hiding something. He was getting too close. That's why he got fired.
Yeah, that's right. And of course you have this continued stew of tinfoil paranoia from the media plying that line. And it's enough. Enough already, you know, from the people who are always crying about the lack of bipartisanship and cooperation, and we need to, you know, have the olive branch and accept the results of the election. And it is months and months later, and they're still doubling down. I'm sick of it. I know your viewers are sick of it too.
Kellyanne Conway said, she was talking about the hypocrisy, how 1 minute the Democrats like, you know, they like Comey, then they don't like him, and then they like him now that he's fired. And then you had Governor Huckabee's daughter, who's the deputy spokesperson for the White House. She was saying that she was shocked that Democrats were so upset because this is exactly what the Democrats were calling for.
Yes, and I'm so glad that she called out that hypocrisy, but mostly, of course, that it's Donald Trump himself who is calling these people out and fighting back. This is why he was elected to office, to drain the swamp, and the swamp is you know, as hysterical as ever that he's putting his imprint on Washington, D.C.
But, Michelle, do you think the president's got to do a better job communicating whatever his decision is? A stronger, more people or whatever it is to get ahead of the messaging? He had a tower around the block from Madison Avenue. He knows the value of communicating the message. You think they could do a better job at that?
Well, you could speak as clearly and with as clarion tone as you possibly could, and still not be able to cut through the smoke screen of the anti-Trump media. I think they're doing a fine enough job calling out this hypocrisy. And yes, a lot of times repetition is the way that you need to defeat these people.
And to your point, Michelle, we've got a graphic to show how the networks covered last night, not just Comey, but the Russian angle of it. And look at that. It's almost 8 minutes on CBS, about the same for ABC, and 9 minutes for NBC. And clearly the message was, the implied message with a lot of the folks on cable news, it is the reason Donald Trump fired James Comey was because he wanted to cover up the whole Russia thing.
Yeah, and what part of James Clapper's testimony when he said that there was no evidence of collusion between the Trump and the Russians, do these people not understand? I mean, it's the agenda-driven media, and I think what people need to see clearly here is that, I mean, these people are like Marsha Brady, right? Jan Brady. Russia, 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 Russia. And every time they soak up precious news time talking about that, they're distracting the American public from so many important stories that are happening across this country, and, of course, the successes of the Trump administration to date.
All right, let's talk about this story. We interviewed Benjamin Lake, who's the father of little Lennox, who's a 6-year-old little boy. They live in California. They were going to Disneyland, and they were hit by an illegal immigrant who had been deported 15 times. The guy, his blood alcohol level was 2 times the legal limit, and he fled. Thankfully, he was found because his car was so badly damaged. Here's a picture of Lennox. He's undergone several surgeries. The good news is, Michelle, he did survive, and he's going to be okay. He's still in the hospital. This is what the dad had to say earlier. How did you feel about this before it really affected your family, though?
You know, I was kind of one of those things where I was kind of like indifferent. I didn't really know the impact. I didn't want to believe that there was this big of an impact, but it's real, it's there, and it's scary to know that, you know, these people are running around and can hurt people, and then it's hard to get any sort of recompensation from them. We have a systemic problem that we all need to deal with. I don't think it's Republican or Democrat. I think as Americans we just need to make sure that our country's safe for our kids and for the future generations, that we're not letting bad people stay here or keep coming back.
So, Michelle, just like Kate Steinle's family, they just said, you know, we didn't really think about the fact that we live in a sanctuary city or we live close to the border. We didn't think about this because it didn't affect our family. And then now they're experiencing it firsthand, a father's worst nightmare.
Yes, and that father was so incredibly articulate, given the tragedy and the shock that I would be in if it happened to one of my children. And he was able to express so clearly and distill the core issue here with regard to immigration enforcement. It is a systemic failure. This is a message that I've been sending for more than a quarter century now. Look, this story continues to happen over and over and over again. This is why Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump have taken the steps they have in the last several months and antagonized the entire open borders system. And as the father correctly pointed out, it is not a partisan issue. And we got to this mess in the first place because you had collusion and an alliance between big business Republicans and open borders Democrats who saw sabotaging immigration enforcement as a way to secure a permanent ruling majority. Just Google the words drunk illegal alien kills and you will see how frequently that this has happened in America. And finally, we have a president and an attorney general who have drawn the line. There's no more 15 strikes, you're out, 30 strikes, you're out, 35 strikes, you're out. This was the entire purpose of removing the open borders prosecutorial discretion that was instituted under the Obama administration that helped enable this crisis. This is truly a crisis.
He's brave to come out and talk about it, and our viewers are so compassionate. The GoFundMe page now is up to $35,000. It was $21,000 when we did the interview, what, 40 minutes ago.
That's great. All right. Michelle, thank you very much for joining us today from Oklahoma City. We covered a lot of territory.
You bet.
All right.
Thanks, Michelle. Great to see you.